as a way of evaluating yourself. Like sometimes you want to know where you might, it might occur to you like where do I really stand with Allah, right? How like am I am I in his good books basically? It would obviously naturally occur to you, and we want to be in his good books. I'm just saying a good way to assess where you are in relation to your Lord is to observe your salah and to use that as a way of evaluating yourself, right? And to think, and this is why I think, as we've discussed already, this is why it's such a significant action, because it tells you what you need to know about how you about how you relate to him, basically. Now, if you're saying that, for example, if we're struggling, he seems far, etc., how do we get close to him? Well, I think again that comes back to some of the stuff that we've just been discussing. You know, keeping that connection with the Quran is critical, I think, because it's basically his voice that you're then basically hearing, his voice, quote unquote, right? That you're constantly hearing, his words, right? If you're spending time with his words, obviously you will naturally be more conscious about him, just as if you were to read again. It's like, for example, again, just to give an easy example, or a lot of us are on different we're on different like social media platforms, right? And we're following this person or that person or the other person. Yeah. Like, I mean, even for example, like people who might, like yourselves or others, for example, who might have subscribed to something that I produce, maybe either some short reflections on a Telegram channel or emails that I send out or whatever. Now, like the reality is that I will occupy space, right, in the mind of somebody to the extent that they will pay attention to the stuff that I'm putting out there, right? And that's just not for me, that's just for anybody. Like there are certain people when on social media, like I will follow certain people and I'll look out for their content, which I find beneficial and I find helpful for myself for different aspects, not just explicitly faith related, but for other things that I'm thinking about and skills that I'm trying to develop, etc. So I look out for their stuff. So then their messaging, right, like filters, and there are some of them that I find extremely beneficial and have really helped me a lot significantly, because I have molded my practice in certain things as a reflection of what they've said. So then you feel a closeness, even though you've never spoken to this person or whatever, right? They don't even know who you are, which is a difference in the analogy. You feel a closeness to them. It's like the celebrity type thing, right? You feel a closeness because you follow them. Well, basically follow your Lord, literally, like follow your Lord. And how are you going to do that? Well, look at what he's saying. So if you almost want to imagine, right, that as if the verses were coming out, were just like individual posts, right? Profile, Allah, right? Individual posts just coming through, and I'm just following. I'm just reading and I'm following. Yeah, like. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Okay, so let me think about how I can, and then your life starts to be molded by that. Then you're going to start to feel that closeness more. That's one. And as I said, back to the creation thing, which is like, don't look at things around you as just part of this world, which just, and without reflecting on, well, where did this come from? How amazing it is. How many meals, like for example, today we ate whatever, 1, 2, 3 meals, right? Whatever you're used to. Okay. So you've eaten food today of some sort, whatever it might be. Like, did you spend time like looking at that food and thinking, wow, this is actually quite amazing. Like the number of things that have gone on, the number of processes that have taken place for this food to arrive on your plate is just like, you cannot even fathom. It's crazy, especially nowadays when it's like coming from God knows where all over the world. Like if you were to trace just the journey of a single tomato, right, onto your plate, like you would just be, if you literally could see it, if you could literally like see that journey, from the beginning of the seed of the previous tomato, right, the seed, the growth, the production of that tomato, then the harvesting of it, then the cleaning and whatever else, right? And probably some bits which we probably don't want to observe in terms of whatever they do to these things nowadays, right? And then and this is somewhere now in, I don't know, Spain or whatever. I don't even know where they grow tomatoes, right? But whatever, someplace. And then the transport process. And then it gets to such and such place, then into the shops, and then and now it's, probably nowadays through some online shopping or this or that, whatever. Now it's made its way all the way. That tomato is destined for your mouth. Like honestly, like if you're sitting there for a second, you're just observing this, and you're thinking about that. On it, like that's enough. That's enough for your next salah. Like for me, that's enough. That's enough ammo, if you want to say, right, or enough of a boost for your next prayer. Just on that, just one tomato is enough. So how do you feel close to him? It's like, well, if you look at the tomato and you don't see Allah, you don't see what he's done to get that tomato there, then we're not thinking, we're just taking everything for granted. And this is the key. Taking things for granted distances you from your Lord. Taking nothing for granted keeps you close to your Lord, because you see him in action when other people don't see him in action. And that's the key. It's very, very important. Yeah. Like a story I often mention, because it's something I read when I was a boy, right? And it's really, really stuck with me for, 30 years ago now. And I don't think I remember much, but that much I remember. Just amazing. I just read about the fact that there, Al-Hasan al-Basri, who was a famous tabi'i. Tabi'i means that he came after the generation after the companions, okay? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, companions at the time of the messenger passed away, still more companions left. And then the generation after that, okay, the tabi'in. So I think they say around in the 70 years after the hijrah, something like this, whatever, right? Anyway, so there's a story that's narrated about him, that a glass of water was brought to him. Yeah, a glass of water was brought to him. He held the glass of water, he looked at it, and he fainted. He fainted, literally fainted. I mean, who even does that nowadays? On the point of reflection, you're so overwhelmed by your reflection, you faint. I mean, you see that, you read that all the time about the companions and these people. It's like you don't even understand how they do it, okay? Although having said that, when I was a young man, I don't feel young anymore, but when I was a young man, I did actually faint. I've only fainted once in my life, and that's when I went to for the washing of a dead body. So I couldn't handle it. I just fainted. Anyway, that's a separate story. But so Al-Hasan Basri got this glass of water. Okay, he's about to drink. He's about to drink. He's paused. He looks at it and he faints. So when he comes around, he's asked, what happened? What happened to you? We just gave you a glass of water. You fainted. He said, I remember the verse in the Quran that when the inhabitants of the fire will ask the inhabitants of paradise, that do you have anything to basically relieve us, right? Or any water at all, right? That you can provide for us, basically. So they will be asking, because they'll be desperate. And then they will say that Allah has prohibited these things for those who used to deny him. And then he said, I'm wondering now whether I will be able to have water to drink on that day. Look at that. Look at that. And I'm sitting here drinking, smart water out of this bottle, probably not even giving it a second thought. So he's seeing water here, he's thinking about the day of judgment, thinking, am I going to be able to drink in the hereafter? I'm drinking so easily now, casually, easily, but in the hereafter, am I even going to be able to drink water? That's where even now you're making an interface between the ayat in creation, the signs in creation, right? And the ayat in the Quran, as he has done. Okay, as he's made the connection between these two, because he's familiar with the Quran. He's thinking reflectively about what's going on around him. He's not taking anything for granted. He's making connections. And honestly, like you will experience that. If you think reflectively about your world, you think reflectively about the Quranic verses, they'll all start interconnecting. You'll see things in a picture, and it's as if things are ordering themselves, in front of you. So yeah.